right, we don't have a gavel, so we'll just call the July 17th, 2023 Planning Board meeting to order. This time, so we have 5, so we have quorum. We will stand for the pledge. Flags over in this corner. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. This time, we will move on to item 2A, approval of the meeting minutes from the June 19th, 2023 Planning Board meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review them? If so, is there any changes, corrections, comments? Not, we'll entertain a motion.
Move that be approved.
Got a motion. And a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Moving on. This time, we'll move into our public hearing items. Public hearings are a time for petitioners to present requests and for the public to state their concerns and voice opinions in favor or in opposition to these requests. If you wish to speak, please come to the podium, sign in on the sign-in provided, and state your name and address for the record before speaking in regard to the request. This time we will go to item 4A, zoning map amendment and land use plan amendment. Jovita, does that sound right? Jovita Simmons, 223 Northwest Street, pin 0656896592, REZ 2023. The purpose of this agenda item is to consider a requested zoning map amendment for a total of 0.12 acres located at 223 Northwest Street from the residential medium density R&D zoning district to the town center residential TCR zoning district, with corresponding land use plan amendment from the downtown to the town center residential. Further information provided by staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Board. I am submitting the agenda abstract and supporting documents into the official record of the town. For you tonight, we have REZ 2023-07, a rezoning proposed by Mrs. Jovita Simons, who is the property owner. As Mr. Petty stated, the request is to rezone a 0.12 acre property from residential medium density to town center residential zoning district, and a corresponding land use plan amendment from downtown to town center residential. The petitioner is proposing to limit the number of allowed uses to the property to just single-family home, which is the current use. Mrs. Simons is requesting rezoning so she can make improvements to her existing home, as the TCR building setbacks will permit the proposed addition. The petitioner is also requesting land use plan amendment from the downtown classification to the town center residential classification, as it is more compatible with the current use of the property as well as the surrounding character of the neighborhood. Preserving the character of existing homes helps ensure more stable neighborhoods. Staff recommends approval of the proposed zoning map amendment and corresponding land use plan amendment, as it is reasonable in the best interest of the public for the following reasons. Although the requested zoning map amendment is not consistent with the 2040 community land use plan classification of downtown, the petitioner has opted to request a change of the land use plan to town center residential, which is compatible with the current and surrounding uses. Number 2, the requested zoning district supports infill development and reinvestment in downtown neighborhoods per the 2040 LUP's policy 2.1, encourage infill development and redevelopment inside town limits. And number 3, the requested zoning district is complementary to the residential uses in the general vicinity. Mr. Simons is here tonight, and I am available to answer any questions.
Any questions from staff? I just have one. Is the nature of the rezoning largely based on the lot size? That's what's allowing her to do the improvements, or what's the?
The town center residential has more flexible setbacks than the residential medium density did, so it gave her more flexibility with her design.
Got it. Any other questions from staff? Thank you.
Well,
all right. At this time, we'll open the public hearing, and I'll ask if there's anyone who wishes to speak in favor of REZ 2023-07. Given that it's hot, we're not going to give a lot of time. We're going to go back and go to anyone who wants to speak in opposition to REZ 2023-07. Seeing none, we'll move on, and we will close the public hearing to bring it back to the board. Any questions for staff, or are we ready for a motion?
So one comment, I like that when we move almost anything to town center residential. I move, I make a motion, we recommend approval of REZ 2023-07, a zoning map amendment for 223 Northwest Street for residential medium density R&D zoning district to the town center residential TCR zoning district, a corresponding land use plan amendment from downtown GT to town center residential, as it is reasonable and in the best interest of the public for the reasons identified by staff.
All right, we got a motion, we have a second. And we have a second. Any more questions for staff before we take the final vote? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous, motion carries. Move on to public hearing item 4B. Zoning map amendment, Mark Smith, Urban Engineering, 1920 North Main Street, PIN 0677434209, REZ 2023-06. The purpose of this agenda item is to consider a requested zoning map amendment for a total of 39.328 acres located at 1920 North Main Street from the residential agricultural RA zoning district to the general commercial conditional zoning district GC-CZD. Further information provided by staff.
Thanks. I am submitting the agenda abstract and supporting documents into the official record of the town. REZ 2023-06 is proposed by Mark Smith with Burton Engineering, who is representing the property owners and developers. The request is to rezone the property from residential agricultural to the general commercial conditional zoning district. The petitioner has proposed a limited number of applicable permitted uses that are appropriate to both the general commercial zoning district and the highway corridor overlay district. Along with the construction of Wallace Adcock Boulevard from US 401 to NC 42, the developer will also be constructing a pump station and extending sewer services to serve the future development. Staff recommends approval of the proposed zoning map amendment and corresponding land use plan amendment as it is reasonable and in the best interest of the public for the following reasons. It is consistent with the 2040 Community Vision Land Use Plans Policy 2.6 to encourage commercial development. It is consistent with the 2040 Community Vision Land Use Plans Policy 4.1 to manage future growth and development in accordance with priority infrastructure investment areas as the subject property falls within a Tier 2 infill investment area. It is consistent with the 2040 Community Vision Land Use Plans Policy 5.2 to improve multimodal connectivity through the town and the comprehensive transportation plan as it is required to construct the Wallace Adcock Boulevard, a collector street, through the property and associated pedestrian accommodations. And lastly, the proposed conditions and associated development agreement effectively limit future development to be compatible with the surrounding areas. I know the engineer and some of the developers are here tonight. If you have any questions specific to them, I'm available to answer any other questions.
Thank you very much. Anybody in the board have any questions for Dan or applicant? At this time, we will open up the public hearing. If there's anybody that wishes to speak in favor of REZ 2023-06, please come up. If anybody wishes to speak in opposition to REZ 2023-06, please come up. Done. So at this time, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for any additional questions, comments, concerns from the staff or motion. I don't have any questions. Most of the zoning things, conditions are all set forth by a developer's agreement. So it's time to entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we recommend approval of REZ 2023-06, zoning map amendment at 1920 North Main Street, residential agricultural RA zoning district, the general commercial conditional zoning district, GC-CZD. The proposed zoning map amendment is consistent with the 2040 Community Vision Land Use Plan and is reasonable and in the best interest of the public for the reasons identified by staff.
All right, we have a motion. We have a second. And we have a second. Any questions before we take the final vote? All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving right along. Public hearing item 4C, Town Code Amendment, Town of Fuquay-Varina. Land Development Ordinance LDO Amendment Number 24, CTA 2023-02. The purpose of this agenda item is to consider a proposed text amendment to the Town Code Ordinances Part 9, Land Development Ordinance Amendment Number 24, that addresses several areas for improvement. Further information provided by staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am submitting the agenda abstract and supporting documents in the official record of the town. 4K CTA 2023-02, text amendment to the Land Development Ordinance that proposes a number of changes to the LDO as well as several clarifications. I will briefly summarize main changes, but please let me know if there are items you'd like me to discuss in detail. The use bank/credit union has been added to form-based districts, RMU, CMU, and EMU, and standards for associated drive-throughs have been established to ensure they will meet the urban feel of the districts. These new standards for drive-throughs will also apply to uses that may require a drive-through, like restaurants and pharmacies, etc. Language requiring opaque service gates for dumpsters has been established. This is in an effort to ensure that trash collection areas are screened from public view, apartment complexes, and non-residential developments. Section on sub-streets, public access, and their requirements have been reimagined as a chart and simplified in terms of category breakdown. All subdivisions of 25 lots or greater shall now be required to have at least one public access in a type 8 or greater thoroughfare so as to avoid having large subdivisions sole access be through another subdivision. This is in an effort to reduce emergency response time as well as the burden on other subdivisions' infrastructure and increase traffic for neighbors. Standards have been added to determine how off-street parking may be counted in townhouse subdivisions. This is in an effort to encourage ample, usable parking for residents and guests. And finally, in conjunction with economic development, staff has added some standards to the historic/landmark property/building section of the DC 1 and 2 appendix. The standard that all properties with historic or landmark designations are exempt from the requirements of the DC 1 and 2 appendix has been amended to state that they are exempt only when the requirement is in conflict with the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation. Additionally, standards have been added that state all proposed changes will be consistent with the historic character or designation of the property, as well as the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation and as approved by staff. Staff recommends approval of the proposed town code amendment. It is reasonable and in the public's best interest, as it improves upon the land development ordinance intended to modernize, provide sustainability, and allows for ease of use and enforcement specifically concerning the town's current standards. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right. Questions for staff before we come public hearing?
I just have a comment. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, I will say it's interesting. Like some of these CTAs, it's hard when you're voting on it. So maybe a piece here or there that you're like, I don't really like that part. This one was, I think for the most part, I really didn't have any issues with any of it. So it makes it easier on us when there's not one little piece. Because most of these CTAs have different components from different parts. You may not like this component, you might not like this component, but you can't vote on one. You got to vote on it as a whole. This was, I thought, pretty well done. So with that being said, we will open up the public hearing. So if there's anybody that wishes to speak in favor of this of CTA 2023-02, please come up to the podium. Anybody wishes to speak in opposition of CTA 2023-02, please come up to the podium. Busy night. All right, this time we will close the public hearing, bring it back to the board for any further discussion or motion. Hey, again, comment or okay.
Right, recommend approval of CTA 2023-02 Amendment 24, amendment to the Town Code Ordinance 9, Land Development Ordinance. Is presented and recommended by town staff. Text amendment approved by the Land Development Ordinance and is reasonable and in the best interest of the public for the reasons identified by staff.
All right, we got a motion. Second. Second. All right. Any questions before we take the final tally? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving right on along. Public hearing item 4D, Community Transportation Plan Amendment, Town of Fuquay-Varina, reduction of future US 401 highway cross section, CTA 2023-03. Purpose of this agenda item is to consider proposed amendment to the 2035 Community Transportation Plan addressing an area for improvement. Further information provided by staff.
Thanks. I am submitting the agenda abstract and supporting documents into the official record of the town. The town's 2035 Community Transportation Plan is a living document meant to be revisited and amended as necessary as the community grows. Although we're about to kick off a year-long update of the Community Transportation Plan to better align the section of US 401 from the intersection at Lake Wheeler Road to the intersection at Banks Road with the improvements proposed by the North Carolina Department of Transportation as part of the implementation of Project HL 0006, the realignment of Hilltop Road. The town is proposing a reduction of the cross-section width from 300 to 200 feet. The town's future vision for this section of US 401 includes reducing the speed to 45 miles an hour, installing side path, curb, and gutter. While further reduction of the US 401 corridor will be explored with the upcoming CTP update, along with studying the impacts of 540 and modeling the future traffic demands, we confirm that the reduced right-of-way section provides adequate space for the proposed intersection improvements and realignment in the area, and we feel the cross-section reduction through this section is appropriate at this time. Our motion tonight is to recommend approval of CTA 2023-03, an amendment to the 2035 Community Transportation Plan as presented and recommended by town staff. The amendment improves upon the Community Transportation Plan and is reasonable in the best interest of the public for the reasons identified by staff.
I do have a question on this. 401 obviously is clearly the way we get from Fuquay-Varina to Raleigh, one of the most important cities we have. So I assume the DOT knows what they're doing to try to allow a reduction because, you know, I always kind of hesitate because once we give it back, then it becomes a taking when we have to, you know, it just becomes a problem if we want to take it back because so I guess the question really is what is the long-term strategy, I think, for, you know, traffic from Fuquay-Varina to Raleigh that wouldn't require, you know, significant width or bandwidth through 401. What's the thinking there? I don't know those numbers.
Matt, can you address this? We'll bring it.
Okay.
So currently in the 2050 MTP, the cross section is a 6A cross section. It's got a really wide median, really wide shoulders. This essentially is going to a 6H cross section. So you still have 6 lanes. The only thing is that you're getting curb and gutter and side paths. If we continue with a 55 mile per hour, access will be restricted along the entire corridor. And we see this as a big commercial area. So if we go about restricting access to there, it's going to really hamper a lot of that stuff. But with regards to getting from Fuquay to Raleigh, the vision is for super streets all the way down through the corridor. And so those are much more efficient than traditional intersections. So a 45 mile per hour with super streets is probably more efficient than a 55 mile per hour traditional intersection.
With lights for all the commercial traffic. Okay, that makes sense. I just wanted to make sure we kind of covered that, you know, future thing. Thank you.
See, I kind of went a little bit of a different direction from you guys. I was looking at it going, why are we not reducing it to 200 feet all the way to 1010? Because, you know, I looked at Raleigh's transportation plan and they're north of 1010 from Garner and then Raleigh, and they call for a 6-lane median divided through there, but their section's only like 113 or 120 feet. So 300 feet is a really, really wide right of way.
Well, I think we thought it was going to be like almost an interstate at some point.
I think our interstate status is 300 feet, so I think, you know, I kind of went a different direction. I kind of struggled with this one, just trying to figure out why we're amending a piece of the CTA to go on 200 feet. We don't go ahead and take it all the way to 1010.
Well, you also have to take into account the 401 bypass. So somewhere the 401 bypass is going to come in. So from like Banks Road up to 1010 Road, all that traffic is going to be going down through there eventually.
Right, so that's kind of the other part of it, because there was probably a bypass around there sometime in the future.
So it sounds like as we move forward with the CTA plan, and as that goes through, there's going to be a little more modeling going on, 540 and the bypass, and we'll kind of know what that section looks like between, say, Banks and 1010.
This next GTP update includes quite a bit of monitoring.
That'll be up. So I went a little bit different direction. It's the same kind of concern. But yeah, it makes perfect sense to get rid of the shoulders and add curves. You don't need as much right away. Thanks, Matt. Any more questions before we open up the public hearing? All right. We'll open up the public hearing and ask the public if there's anyone who wishes to speak in favor of CTA 2023-03. Anybody wish to speak in opposition to CTA 2023-03?
My name is Martha Fish. I live at 6615 Feedback Road in Willow Springs. So I'm coming here to ask for some clarification about, and we'll make my question into 2 parts so I can understand better the reasoning behind reducing the right-of-way from 300 to 200. Very familiar with the NCDOT project 0006. I went online and looked at the video to reduce the congestion from Lake Wheeler, where Hilltop will connect eventually, from Hilltop Newport to Hilltop and Airport. That's a DOT project approved, funded, and that section there, I don't know exactly the length of it, maybe a quarter of a mile, you would know exactly how long it is. So I understood from looking at the video that that section would have two alternatives. The NCDOT recommended alternative 2, which has some changes to reduce that connection. I understand that. So this is my clarification question, just because I didn't understand. When I read the agenda item to reduce the right-of-way, and I thought about all the prefaces that Fuquay writes to different projects, and he talks about traffic and the need to have more traffic or new roads or whatever. When I saw that it reduced it, it's like, wow, is that being reduced? So just my question and answers I would like to get tonight. It seems a little counterintuitive there. I did not understand that this was an NCDOT approved project to consider this cross section from Hilltop Newport all the way to Banks Road for a distance of maybe a mile or so. I'm not quite sure. I didn't understand that that was an NCDOT approved project. And the other thought I had was a question that we had discussed. I know back in 2021, Aaron Beret said, let's have this 401 corridor as another consideration for the bypass. If this work is done on this section starting at Hilltop Newport to Banks Road, does that, my notes here. Would that reduction in any way adversely affect alternative W because of a remaking of this 1 mile section? I'm trying to articulate this as best I can. Thank you for your patience. So I just felt like we needed some clarification on that. I'm having a little trouble understanding the need of it. And if NCDOT has approved this reduction from 300 to 200.
I think we can phrase some questions to staff. We don't normally directly answer like a question that comes back from the public. We'll phrase it, kind of get you some answers through here, but the easiest way is to call the planning and engineer to get the direct answers to your questions. But we will ask some questions here to kind of clarify some of those things. I think I understand what you're asking and why you're asking it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'm Johnny Bowden, 7130 Turnerfish Road, Willow Spring.
Can you repeat your name and address, please?
Johnny Bowden, and I'll sign the sheet when I finish. 7130 Turnerfish Road, Willow Spring. And, Martha and her group and my Willow Spring community group, we've had a number of conversations, impromptu meetings about this particular proposal. I've had conversations with Wake County Transportation Department Friday afternoon. It is not my understanding that this particular stretch of 401 from Lake Wheeler to Banks Road is officially a part of a recommendation of NCDOT project HL-0006. I spent all last week working on this. US 401 is a US 401 DOT right-of-way and an NCDOT road. And so what I'm sort of reinforcing what Martha is saying. And I stay on top of all these NCDOT projects going on around here, which 71, 72, all of this. And so what I'm asking you to do, there's no rush in this. There is no rush to do this. It's a vision that Fuquay-Varina has to go ahead and implement this. what would be prudent for the planning board is to postpone until Kimberly Horn does an update to the new, community transportation plan. And let them revisit all of this officially as engineers, as opposed to planners trying to do it. And, I think some conversations need to be had, because this is not my understanding of HL 0006. It's the only thing showing up on that website and those videos. That intersection there at Lakewood and 401 doesn't really show anything about going all the way back to Banks Road and redoing the road. That's not showing up on my computer. So I just ask that you postpone it, let Kimberly Horn do the whole plan for you all that you're getting ready to do anyway, and then revisit it again. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in opposition? All right, with that, we're going to close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. I'm going to kind of go through some of these things. I think there's some good dialogue there and some good questions and some misnomers and some things that just maybe don't correlate right. And I think it would be helpful if Matt and you guys could explain kind of the distinction between how NCDOT operates versus the CTP from the way that the town is set up, and how DOT builds roads versus what we have in our CTP and what we expect our developers to build. I think that's a distinction that probably helps clarify some things. And then, Matt, I think if you could help with talking about how not necessarily that a wider right-of-way doesn't necessarily correlate to a highway with a higher capacity.
I think right off the bat, just to reinforce, the current road section of that section, plus the section north of it, is 6-lane, median divided with sidewalks and side path for both the 200 and 300 foot right-of-way section. So the physical road in the right-of-way does not change with the right-of-way width modifying currently today. So by reducing that section, that 6-lane median divided with sidewalk and side path actually goes all the way down to 5 points currently, even though there's already a 200 foot section south of the area being modified. So I think that's a critical element. This is not changing the proposed roadway, it is only changing the proposed right-of-way width.
So the right-of-way doesn't really correlate to the capacity of the road itself. You're still getting 6 lanes, 3 on either side.
It's the same
It's just we're squeezing it in a smaller space.
Right. And the fact that the goal, the intent is to move to a 45 mile an hour with curb and gutter. Curb and gutter obviously takes less room than an open section road with ditches on the side.
Right.
Obviously it spreads out. The other thing just to clarify is the NCDOT project is to realign that intersection into the intersection improvements. It is not for the road. The NCDOT is not doing the road improvements. This was just the correlating. If any development came along, the CTP would support a specific frontage improvements based on the right-of-way dedication and roadway improvements, which again would be identical to what's in ordinance.
And DOT came in with a project to widen 401. Say they come up with a project that wanted to widen 401 from Fuquay to Raleigh on their own. They don't necessarily abide by our CTA. They do their own modeling and they put in whatever it is that they feel like is necessary based off the models they do, correct?
That's right. Our CTP is a standalone document.
Right. So I think that's an important distinction to note, is that our CTA is put in place for a section. What we would like to see through that, if we require our developers and our development to build, and obviously we would love DOT to build that, but DOT is going to build basically what they need for capacity, not necessarily for aesthetics and for the interest of the towns. So I think that's a pretty good distinction. So if say you do the modeling for the CTP, when we amend this, when Kimberly Horn does their modeling, and it shows that for some reason you do need 300 feet, can this go back to 300 feet between what we've just changed? Could that be implemented back? Is there any rules that state we could say, oh boy, we made a mistake at this meeting and now we need to go back to 300 feet? I don't see that happening, but just, is that a possibility? There's nothing that stops us from doing that. So I personally don't see any reason to not proceed with going with 200 feet at this point. Given especially that Raleigh has got a section for 6 lanes median divided in less than 200 feet. So, I mean, personally, I've never really seen the need for 300 feet right away is a large right away. But discussion through the board. Talk. Any thoughts? Any questions on how that works and how correlation is between our CTP and how DOT operates and capacity in right-of-ways, think it's also important to note that even if our CTP says 200 feet, DOT does a roadway project, it does not necessarily mean they're going to acquire 200 feet of right of way. They're going to acquire the right of way they need to build the road. That's it. If it's 80 feet, it's 80 feet. So I think that's also another correlation between the two. So with that, entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we recommend approval of CTA 2023-03, an amendment to the 2035 Community Transportation Plan as presented and recommended by town staff. The amendment approved. Is it the right one?
You are. Okay, go.
That sounded very familiar to the other one that I didn't. Okay. As presented and recommended by town staff, the amendment improved upon the Community Transportation Plan and is reasonable and best interest of the public for the reasons identified by staff.
All right, got a motion. In a second. Any more discussion before we vote on this one? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Move on. Item 5A. This is now we are done with the public hearings, so we are now into other business. Item 5A, minor subdivision flag lot, Walden Watkins surveying 3710 Johnson Pond Road, SUB REC 2023-01. The purpose of this agenda item is to consider a flag lot submitted by Walden Watkins surveying located at 3710 Johnson Pond Road. Further information provided by staff.
Good evening, Chair, members of the board. I'd like to enter the abstract and supporting documents of the official record of the town. Subdivision case sub SUB-REC-2023-01 is proposing to create a flag lot. Just like the rest of this evening, this is something a little bit out of the ordinary than what we normally see, so why not wrap it up with a bang. A flag lot is defined as an irregularly shaped lot existing or created by a subdivision where the buildable portion of the lot is connected to its street frontage by an arm of the lot that does not meet the minimum lot width and street frontage standards specified for the zoning district in which that flag lot is created. This particular lot will be in, it's actually part of a recombination process. So these lots are all zoned RA, and they are providing, the intent of this one is to actually, the northern large lot is intended to have a 50-foot access to, I apologize, Johnson Pond Road to allow for possible future further subdivision down the road. So as it sits now, we can't hold a single-family lot. That's not an issue as is, but the owner just wanted to have the opportunity to possibly create another couple lots in the back to provide the required access to get there in the future should it be required. Some of the major standards in subdivision or for a flag lot is the length of the arm connecting the buildable portion of the lot to the public right-of-way cannot exceed 300 feet. All of these zoning lot standards shall be determined using the buildable area of the lot, so that includes the setbacks, the minimum lot width, all the other things that we normally source right on the public right-of-way. All of that gets bumped back to the end of the arm and then done through only on the buildable portion of the lot. As part of the review and approval process, it does need to be reviewed by the planning board, and you will need to prepare a recommendation to the town board for final approval. Staff has been working with this client for quite some time now, and so the intent of the flag lot, or covered that part, I apologize. The staff would like to recommend approval of the proposed flag lot located 3710 Johnson Pond Road as presented and recommended. I'll be happy to answer any questions, and the surveyor is also here. If you have any questions,
Josh, do you have any questions?
I just have a comment. I don't like flag lots. Nobody does. And in looking at that map, it looked like it would have been, if the development had been that was next to it and put in some stubs, we wouldn't be talking about flag lots here. But the development that was put in, probably Wake County development, wasn't required to put in stubs to adjoining properties. Because there's would have been excellent opportunities just to put a short stub in and make all those lots easily accessible. So which is why it's important for us to continue to enforce our stub street requirements, and we're being even more tough about that, which is good. So, and then the other thing is we got, with the right of way. That big right of way that's there, is that 540? Yeah, that's 540. I couldn't remember what So that's 540. It's like you kind of can't prepare for that. So they got, they really got put into a corner. And so I support it. I just don't like flag lots, and we have other ways if we do things intelligently ahead of time to not have to be forced into. That's fine.
Fair. I mean, so, does everybody on the planning board understand where the flag piece comes into play on this? Okay. Yeah, it's a tough piece, and they got hammered with 540. That's a tough.
I do have another question on that. With the if they do subdivide the back part of the lot, at what point do we require like a private street versus just a driveway? They're actually subdividing, I think, later on do some other subdivisions. They all just access through the same, as a shared driveway sort of a situation, or is it a private street?
So this is set up to, it could be a public road.
Or it could be a public road, which is that'd be great. That'd be fine.
Right, and obviously we can have our minor subdivision
Right.
standards.
So yeah, so
Check off other boxes, but it is being set up that it can be a public road with the.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah. It's the best you can do with a situation like that.
Oh yeah, it was clear.
Yeah, it's tough. Some of the impacts of ETJ expansions and stuff like that, where just decisions were made before we got in charge.
Forward thinking to set
Right.
that 50 feet.
Right.
So we'll
So,
do that.
yeah, and the new private road regulations we just passed, kind of helps them out a little bit. So it's all good. All right. Any more questions for staff or motions?
I recommend approval of proposed flag lot located at 3710 Johnson Park Road. Is that correct?
Motion and a second. You have any more questions before we vote? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Move on. Item 6A, planning staff report. The purpose of the agenda item is to receive information, disposition of the planning board's recommendations to the town board of commissioners for the June 19th, 2023 planning board meeting. Any questions for staff? Take a look at it. We're all still in agreement, which is always a good thing. If no other questions, Barbara, I will turn it over to you. So you got a motion in a second. All in favor? Aye.
That was efficient.
Get out of the hot box.